So we get started. So welcome everyone to this coffee chat with Kristen Hadeed, talking about developing resilience in yourself and others. My name is Dr. Nadine Ventus, and I'm the program manager for the Troesh Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. Just a few housekeeping rules. You can turn your videos on, but please keep muted unless directed by the speaker to unmute your microphones. Also, if you need to leave this event for any reason and you wanted to let me know, just in the chat box, instead of directing it to everyone, just to choose me as the Nadine Ventus as a co-host to let me know that is occurring. And again, you found this event through Startup Tree. We're constantly adding at the Troesh Center events for students on Startup Tree, so always feel free to visit. We just added 3 etiquette courses on business etiquette in the upcoming semester. We're having a student pitch competition, which Marcel will briefly discuss right now. And let me just hand off briefly to Marcel to discuss the pitch competition, and then we'll start with Kristen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Marcel. I'm the graduate assistant for the Troesh Center. So this semester, we're hosting a pitch competition with co-hosts UNLV IMA and UNLV DECA. We have 2 tracks for the pitch competition. The first one is open to all UNLV students. It doesn't matter if you're a Lee Business School student, like you can be from, as long as you're a UNLV undergraduate or graduate student. And then the second track is for Lee student organizations. So the winners is basically a pitch of if you have a unique business idea for a product or service, you can pitch that. And if you're an organization, you're kind of pitching your organization and your purpose. We have monetary prizes, and if you're interested in learning about more information, just email entrepreneurship@unlv.edu for more information. We have a couple dates lined up, so we can email you all those dates through email. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel. And now let me hand over to Kristen Hadeed, just a brief 20-second intro bio. So Kristen is the founder of Student Maid, a successful cleaning company that has employed thousands of students over the last decade, is known for building the next generation of leaders. She's now transitioning to Student Maid, MADE, which is going to focus on student leadership. She's also the author of Permission to Screw Up, in which she offers an unapologetic account of her biggest mistakes in leadership. She has a TED Talk that has more than 3 million views on YouTube, and she's been featured on PBS, Fox Inc., NBC, Time, and Forbes. Thank you so much, Kristen, for joining us today.
Thank you, Nadine, and hi, everyone. It has been a wild week for me. I live in Texas, so if you've been watching the news, you know about what's been happening in Texas because it snowed and our city or our state is not used to snow. And so I went over 3 days without power. And, thinking about the theme resilience, there were moments where I just felt like I had to dig deeper than I have ever dug to. It was just a really hard time. So I have power. It is a great day. I get to be here with you. I'm so happy. I would love it if you turn on your video just so that we can make this as connected as we can, because ideally we could be in the same room together. Since we can't do that, would love to see your faces. There's no judgment in this Zoom room, and totally get it also if you're having a day where you're just virtually exhausted and you don't want to have your screen on. So I honor wherever you may be. We're here to talk about resilience, and I want to kick it off with hearing what you've discovered. Did you do the handout? Did you create your resilience resume? Just want to hear a little bit about your exploration and maybe any ahas that you had or questions that you have, and then we'll kind of riff off of those themes. So anyone want to kick us off with your experience going through the PDF? Anybody? Don't be shy.
I thought it was really interesting. I'm in athletics, and we do a lot of reports kind of like this through experiences, and after every week of practice, usually we had our own like performance journals. And so I thought this one was really interesting, but it was tough for me just to pick one personal resilience or like one screw up, because I feel like I know myself, and I feel like a lot of people, we all screw up a lot. So
Yeah.
it was interesting. I didn't know whether to go to the big route or the short route, so I just picked a bunch and kind of just kept them all up in my head. So, but I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for sharing. So I love that you picked a bunch. On my resilience resume, I have big things, small things, mine is pages, and I just keep adding to it. And like I was saying in the last session, when I'm having a really hard day, I look at it and it's what reminds me to keep going. Now, unfortunately, mine's on my computer. So I really wish that I had written it down so that this week I could have looked at it, because I couldn't even plug in my computer to look at it. But the idea is we continue to add to it. And then we have this essentially journal of like all the hard things we've been through and the lessons we've learned. And the other thing that I love that you said is in your, it sounds like what you're doing in sports is you're reflecting on a regular basis, and you're thinking probably about what went well and how do I learn from that, and what maybe did I not do well, or what could have been better and how do I learn from that. And if you look at teams, whether it's a sports team or a team in a business, this idea of reflection and constantly talking about what are we learning from our wins and what are we learning from the things that we could do better is really important in order to make progress as a team, build trust as a team, and continue to get better as a team. So this is something that's not just on an individual level, it's as a team, right? Thank you. Anyone else want to share your experience?
I just had a question when I was doing it. How do you not undermine yourself? Because I was thinking, oh, I made it through this. Then I'm like, that's such a small thing. It's not resilient. It's just normal. I should be expected to do that type of thing and not undermine yourself.
Yeah. So that sounds like a mindset thing. It sounds like, as humans, we've got to give ourselves, I think sometimes we don't give ourselves grace. And sometimes we maybe make ourselves feel like, well, that win wasn't that much of a win, or, that really wasn't anything. And really it was something, and we learned from it. And some things can be small and some things can be big. It doesn't always take something big and grand for us to learn. It can be the small everyday moments. And so something that's really helped me with my mindset is that reflection and learning to do it on a regular basis. So every day I end my day, and actually this is my last thing that I've got today with you. And what I'll do once we're done is I will sit here and just for maybe 5 minutes, I will think about today. And I'll think about what went well today and what are my wins, and I'll celebrate those. I think about what other wins of people do I need to celebrate. So I might send some recognition like, hey, you spoke up in the meeting today and that was awesome. And I just wanted to let you know it was so great. Then I think about what did I learn? What could I have done better? And I also think, did anyone else do anything that could have been better? And I give the feedback, so learning to get into the habit of that on a daily basis has helped me celebrate small wins, and has also helped me realize that whether it's big or small, I'm building resilience. What else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the way you framed the PDF is picking mistakes that we've made, but would you put something like this week you overcame something really, really hard, but it's nothing that you were responsible for necessarily. It's something that happened to you. Would you put that on your resiliency resume? And what?
Totally. So on our resilience resume, it could be screw ups, it could be mistakes, it could also be hard times, right? Like none of us chose this pandemic, right? None of us were responsible for the pandemic, but we've had to learn how to adapt and live in this time. And we're totally building resilience by doing that. So it can be hard and challenging times that you've had. It can be, and it can be even things like, have you ever lost someone that you love, the death of a loved one? It could be a breakup that wasn't your choice. It could be things that you weren't responsible for, right? But you had to learn how to navigate that time, and you did it. And so what did you learn from it? And can totally be just anything that's challenged you, anything that's been hard. What else? What else were you thinking about as you were reading through it? Anyone want to share something that's on your resilience resume? Anybody? One hard thing you've been through and what you've learned from it? Come on.
I'll share.
Okay.
So I just picked early on when I was in college. Actually, so I work at UNLV, but I'm also UNLV grad. So I signed up for a credit card my first week as a student, like the worst decision ever. So I got in huge amounts of credit card debt. I know that kind of common, unfortunately. But many years later, I had met my now husband, and we had gone to, I think it was a church service, and they were talking about just managing money well. And I had not disclosed to him how much debt that I had at the time. So, but working through that, I had to tell him. And we just made it a goal to pay off all the debt. But I think that bigger than learning how to manage money, I just learned how important it is to take things out of the darkness, and like secrets aren't helpful, and being able to share with somebody close to you. We were able to like take care of that, and then just manage our money differently, pay everything that we can in cash, and just never have to like relive anything through bills that come every month if we can help it. So yeah, that was like my big thing that I put on my.
Thank you. And that's so powerful. And so let me ask you this, even though that was probably a really hard time, and I'm sure there were a lot of challenges that came along with that. Now that you're looking back in hindsight, it's kind of like, in a way, I'm kind of glad, not saying that you would repeat the mistake, but it's like, had I not made that mistake, maybe I wouldn't have learned these things. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I learned so much through, and now, I mean, we have kids, and we're really involved with young people, and we get to share that. People ask me all the time, like if they're getting married, or like a big time in their life, like, what is your advice? Like, do not go into debt. But you're right. If you haven't experienced something really hard, it's hard to give advice to other people because you don't have that experience to draw from.
Totally. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to share something that you've been through in your life that's hard and also taught you something?
I wrote down, like, there's two things that kind of combined. So like at my job, I think over time, I've been there for like 2 years. So over time, I've like gone through different managers, different assistant managers, and shift leads and whatever. And like having to learn and like readapt to people was like a very big thing to me. And something I learned I like hated is when somebody assumes that I did something wrong and doesn't ask me if like what happened. Because like most of the time, like I try to pride myself in like doing things the right way, like taking my time. If it takes longer, I'm still gonna do it in the right way. So through that, I like had to learn how to like not only be patient when somebody who's like above me is just like accusing me of something, but also like learn how to like self in like in still a kind way.
Yes.
So I think that was like a very big thing to me. Like one time my brother-in-law told me, he was like, you could just say to them very clearly and like easy, like, I wish you like wouldn't assume that I made a mistake before you ask me. And so over time it's really helped with my character of like of how I treat others. And when the other thing I wrote about was when I was growing up, one of my brothers, he has congenital heart disease. And he's older than me. So I've always had this like very innate care for people. Like I just like, I understand that people have a very small amount of time on earth, and like some people have more and some people have less. And so it's turned me into being like more caring to like random strangers. So it's like all combined into one, like showing love and care for people, as well as like speaking up for yourself and like not getting walked on.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else have anything?
Hey, Kristen, I had a question. I'm not sure if you had this at Student Maid. What if you grew up in where the cultural norm is not to talk about failure? Like, what if it's that your parents never mentioned failure because they thought that, not that maybe they didn't even think about it. It wasn't something they talked about openly,
Right.
and or they just didn't expect you to fail, like type of thing.
Yeah.
So I guess, have you had to work with that in Student Maid for students who don't know how to deal with failure because it's never been talked about?
Yeah, we absolutely. And we all have different relationships with failure, right? I think I shared when I was growing up, my parents were very much, let's talk about it. It's okay to fail. Failure is growth. Then you have people who, and maybe this describes your experience. You never saw your parents or anyone in your life talk about failure. It was just something you didn't acknowledge. Then we have people, and maybe this describes your experience, where failure was bad. And when you failed, it was something to be ashamed of. And you learned that love was perfection and anything outside of that was not love. And so then there's a fear, right, to fail, because growing up, you learned that failure equals I'm not loved. And then there's a lot of other experiences that we don't know. We may each have a different one. And I don't know who said this quote, but it's something like, you're not responsible for like the way your parents raised you or what, has happened to this point, but you are responsible for fixing it. And I think about that with mindset. It's like, you're not responsible for how your parents or your teachers or your coaches that you had, treated failure and the relationship that you developed with it at a young age, but you're responsible for what your relationship looks like with it from this point forward. And this resilience resume activity is really awesome because it starts to help you with your relationship with failure, because you begin to look at failure as, okay, it's something that I can find a lesson, I can grow from it. And I will tell you that this is the thing when we look at, I've got a lot of friends who are CEOs, and when we talk about hiring in the future, this strength, this resilience, this willingness to take risks, try things, be okay if it doesn't necessarily work out, like making momentum is what's needed, because so many people are paralyzed by fear because they don't want to fail, that they don't take action. And so when you hear things like, I wish people would take more initiative, or I think what people are really saying is, I wish they would just try, because the worst that could happen is it doesn't pan out, but at least we've made some progress. So the more you can work on your relationship with failure, I think it begins with understanding, what is your relationship, right? What is it? And then activities like the resilience resume and reflecting every day. These are things that are going to develop your mindset to be a growth mindset. To have you heard of do it scared? It's like the point isn't necessarily to get rid of the fear. It's that to acknowledge it exists and go forward anyways. So Nadine's shared that I'm in the middle of a huge transformation in my company. We have decided after 14 years that we are no longer going to be a cleaning company. And we're going fully into student leadership development. And it is scary. And there are so many things that could go wrong. And whenever it comes to change, there's always things that could go wrong. And we're doing it anyways. And we may fail. We may fail a lot of times, and we're doing it anyways. And so I think there's this misconception that people who have courage don't have fear. I think people who have courage acknowledge that the fear exists and they do it anyways. Right. And on that note, there's also fear of success. Has anyone ever heard of this? Did we talk about this last time? I don't think so, right? Fear of success. Let's talk about sports, because this could totally show up in sports. Fear of success is you achieve a new goal or baseline, or I'm not athletic if you can't tell. So whatever you would call that, right? You achieve your new, what is it when you PR, okay? You PR, personal record. Is that what it stands for? Okay, see, I'm cool. Okay, so you PR, and then you're like, wait, that means next time I have to beat that. So you almost are afraid to move forward, because what does success mean? And when I was writing my book, that came up a lot for me, because writing a book was really, really hard. And I went a year and a half past my deadline. And there were so many days where I just wanted to throw my computer out the window. I did not enjoy the book writing process. And I remember thinking, so wait, what's the point of this? If I write a good book, does that mean I have to write another one? That's the last thing I want to do right now, So it made me almost procrastinate and not move forward, because what did success mean? And now, I can see clearly what that was. But that's also a theme. So think about the next time you're not moving forward on something, it's a chance to learn something about yourself. Are you fearing potential failure? If so, look at your resilience resume and be reminded you can do it scared. Are you fearing potential success? And what does that success mean? And then wrap your head around that. Like for me, it was a reality of like, okay, wait, just if the book does good doesn't mean I have to write another book. It's my choice if I want to write another book. And guess what? I'm writing another book. So, you never know. Like you may think that I think a lot of times our minds go to worst case, and usually worst case isn't what happens. So I would encourage you to keep building this resume. And if you're on a team, a great thing to do if you have a team that is like having a bad day, or we don't know how to move forward, or we've just had this big challenge, what are we going to do? It's a great opportunity to say, let's build a resilience resume really quick. Let's together talk about all the things that we've been through that have been hard, and what do we learn from them? And it's a way to, in the moment, boost your team's morale. So think about that now, and as you progress in your careers. Any other questions on this before we move to core values? Because that's our next topic.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't have my camera on. I know.
It's okay.
But currently I'm facing the fear, and it's the fear about like I'm starting a new company and I see so much potential in it, especially because of the type of support I'm getting through the professionals who have like decades of experience over me, and they're a part of my team, and I get the opportunity to lead them and create this new venture. But along with it, like every day I get like, sometimes it just like hits me, and it's only happened, I believe, like 2 times, like very like intensely. But I'm facing the fear of like, what happens if this like really just becomes really successful and really helps the community at large. And I am just so like every day I just like feel that fear, and I can't like move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll tell you a story. Maybe this will help. So that I have a company, right? And I've had that company for 14 years, and maybe like 5 or 6 years into the company, I started to feel this tugging feeling of I felt like I was meant for something more. And I love teaching. It's like my most favorite thing. It's what I love to do in our team and in our company, teaching people, helping them become the best leaders they could be. And I had started to get some speaking requests. And I remember feeling like, well, if I start to do this outside of the company, what happens if it becomes like an actual thing? What if it becomes another business? What if it takes me away from the company? What if it becomes big? Like what? And I did not follow my heart because I was afraid of what success could look like. Over time, that tugging feeling got so big that I couldn't ignore it. And so I started to speak on campus, and then that led to this and to that and to that. And now 80-90% of my job is this. And I'm still involved in my company, but in a different way, really empowering the team to move forward, and it did get big. And it got so big that now we have 2 companies and we have 2 teams, and but I'm following my heart, And so I think with you, I can just hear that you're excited about what you're doing. You're passionate, you have support. And if it gets big, you'll figure it out. And it's one step at a time. And the thing that helps me when I start to feel overwhelmed is, what is my one next step? What is the one next thing that I can focus on, instead of, because again, it's like we're going all the way to Z. We're at A and we're like going all the way to Z, but we don't even know if Z is going to happen. So let's just talk about B. And then we'll talk about C. And then we'll talk about D, and having that shorter, like smaller focus has really helped me in times where I feel overwhelmed. But even if it becomes big and successful, you'll figure it out. And at the end of the day, you always have a choice. You have a choice for how large you want things to be, how much you're willing to give something, and you always have a choice to walk away. So at the end of the day, you're in control. and just reminding yourself of that. Follow your heart.
Oh, thank you. That really helps. I mean, it did, like, so yesterday something had happened which made my focus like much more like it kind of like started to like make it a laser focus for me. So that really helped. But no, thank you for your advice. This is very helpful.
Yes. Yes. So I want to honor our time here. So let's talk about the next resource. And the next resource that you're going to be receiving is one about core values. And even if you have your values identified for yourself, your personal values, I really highly recommend you do this workbook, because it will help you. First, I think it'll help you make sure that the values you've chosen for yourself are in fact the values that are most important to you, but it will help you articulate them in a way that's really powerful. So whether you have a general idea of what your values are or not an idea at all, please do the workbook. It is so huge. And your values become your compass. And for me, they've become the compass for relationships. Like, my values told me that the person I dated in college for 5+ years was not my person, and led me to the person that I'm getting married to. My values helped me in building my company, to know the kind of people that I was looking for to join the team, and the kind of people that were not going to align and be on the team because they would affect our culture because they didn't align with the values. My values taught me which customers to work with, which ones to not work with, in really tough situations where there seems to be no right answer. My values always point me to the answer every single time. And in times where I've had to make difficult decisions as a leader, and it seems like people aren't on the same page, and one side feels this and one side feels that, I go to my values. And every single time my values have pointed me to the answer. Next time when we reconvene about this, I'll share some examples of times in my life where I have been really in those difficult spots and my values have helped me find the way. But these are these are things that stick with you. Think of these as your deal breakers. Like, you're not going to work with a company or an organization that doesn't align. If you start a company, you're not going to hire people whose values don't align. When it comes to your relationships, you're not going to spend a ton of time and invest in relationships with people whose values don't align. Because here's what I've learned. No matter how much feedback you give somebody, if your values don't align, that's it. There's nothing you can do. If you value integrity and there's someone who doesn't, there's nothing that's going to make that person value what you value. And, so these really are key. And you'll have that PDF after this, I believe.
So I put the link in, if you haven't RSVP'd for the event's on March 26th, and I put the link in the chat. And we'll send you a follow-up email after this event as well, because we recorded this event and recorded session 1 as well. And you'll all get access to the Troesh Center Canvas page where you can rewatch session 1 if you missed it, rewatch this session, and then we'll also give you access and send you the guide for the next session for the personal value session on the 26th. We'll send that to you early next week.
And this is huge. Like, this is something you want to articulate in interviews, and we can talk about all of that. So I would love it if you come to the session with your values identified, and you'll see, and the workbook walks you through it. Like, if you just follow the steps, you'll end with your values. And the key is you don't want any more than 5. More than 5 is too hard to remember. So it's going to force you to keep it simple and focused on the things that are the most important to you. So I can't wait. That's coming up soon. And with that, I think we're at our time.
Yes, thank you so much, Kristen. Also, if you guys haven't followed Kristen on social media, please do on Instagram. There are times that she actually has live sessions on Insta Live that she has work parties, and she has times that she tells you to join. She plays music, and there's just time that you're working whatever you need to work on, but it gives you that concentrated amount of time to actually work on whatever you're working on, either this worksheet, homework, work items that you need to work on. But it's just a time that you're like, hey, I'm going to go into this meeting and just be working on things, and everyone has that common goal, because sometimes it's hard to, especially in the virtual realm, to get that motivation, and she has that through these sessions.
Yeah, so there's surprises, and I try to do 1 a week, and I'll just announce, hey, Zoom work party for 4 hours, happening tomorrow, and people from all over the world come, and we play awesome music, and everyone is just working on their own stuff, but it's kind of like this idea of being alone, working, but together with people. Mm-hmm. So it's just my name. I'll put it in the chat, Instagram, LinkedIn, any of that.
But thank you for coming today. Thank you, Kristen, so much. I'm so glad you're safe and have power and everything, and to use about resilience. And we'll see you next month to talk about personal values. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming today.
Yay, thanks everyone. I always end with a Zoom hug. So Zoom hug, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Bye.